Since the earliest of times, ferns have been appreciated for their beauty and have provided shelter and sometimes food. The birth of their young coiled fronds has often been used in artwork such as the koru. Ferns are popular in our parks and gardens, and even brought indoors to enhance our living spaces. There are as many as 12,000 species of ferns throughout the world. Some are the size of your fingernail, while others are as tall as a tree. In the wild, ferns are successful at reproducing and spreading throughout the forest. They do this by producing spores. The familiar fern is known as a spore plant. If the fern frond is turned over, small circular areas may be seen. Each of these contains a group of small spore cases. In some ferns, these are exposed. In others, the spore cases are protected by a cap. In some ferns, this covering is bowl-shaped. Each group contains as many as 100 spore cases. Each of these will produce several dozen spores. Each is attached to the leaf by a stalk. The jacket cells protect the fertile tissue within. A band of jacket cells with very thin outer walls forms around the spore case. The function of this band is to open the case and release the spores. Below the jacket there are 2 layers of cells. These cells nourish the fertile tissue inside. The cells of the fertile tissue each contain 2 sets of chromosomes. As each cell matures, its nucleus divides twice by the process of meiosis. Each nucleus now contains 1 set of chromosomes. Thin walls now form around each nucleus, resulting in a cluster of 4 new cells. A further deposit of wall material produces cells with thick, resistant walls that are called spores. Groups of spore cases are located on the underside of a fern frond. A band of cells forms around each spore case. The fertile tissue divides by meiosis to produce spores. Spores are thick-walled cells with 1 set of chromosomes. The spore cases in a group are now ready to open. Opening is accomplished by the band of jacket cells that encircles the spore case. These cells begin to dry out as water evaporates from their surface. Water remaining in the cells now pulls strongly on the cell walls. The thick inner and side walls resist this pull, but the thin outer walls are easily pulled inward. As a result, the band shortens much like an accordion and tears the jacket cells apart. As the tear enlarges, the spore case opens. When all the water has evaporated, the pull on the band cell walls is suddenly released. The thin outer walls then spring back. This snaps the band forward, throwing out the spores. This process is repeated in thousands of spore cases on a leaf, releasing large quantities of spores. A band of jacket cells shortens, opening the spore case. The band then springs forward, throwing out the spores. Carried by the wind, some spores will land on moist surfaces and absorb water. A filament emerges and attaches the spore to the soil. This is followed by a sheet of cells, which rapidly expands to form a small heart-shaped gamete plant. This simple plant absorbs water and is photosynthetic. Numerous filaments attach it firmly to the soil's surface. Male reproductive structures, or sperm cases, are formed at one end of the gamete plant. Inside the outer protective jacket, there are sperm cells. At the other end of the plant, there are female reproductive structures, or egg cases. Each has a protective jacket. Inside, there is an egg cell. Although these plants are bisexual, they pass through separate female and male phases to avoid self-fertilization. If a plant is flooded with water while it's in the female phase, it releases a hormone. This hormone stimulates adjacent plants to stop growing and only form male structures. A plant in the female phase may therefore be surrounded by several male plants at the time of fertilization. Spores form small bisexual gamete plants. Sperm are formed within sacs located at one end of the gamete plant. Eggs are formed within sacs located at the opposite end of the gamete plant. Sperm and eggs are formed at different times to avoid self-fertilization. In some ferns, a hormone is released that stimulates plants to be male. close to the soil, the tiny gamete plants are easily flooded when it rains. This water plays an important role in fertilization. Water stimulates the male structure to open and release sperm cells. Sperm are now able to move within the water in search of an egg cell. A sperm cell consists of a spiral cell body bearing numerous flagella that move it forward. Water also stimulates the egg case to open. A chemical is then released into the surrounding water, where it attracts sperm to the open egg case. Reaching the opening, the sperm makes its way towards the egg. Fertilization is completed when the egg and sperm nuclei fuse. Two sets of chromosomes are now present, and the fertilized egg is ready to grow into an embryo. Water stimulates the male structure to open and release sperm. Water stimulates the egg case to open and release a sperm attractant. Sperm swim through the surrounding water by beating their flagella. Fertilization is completed when the sperm and egg nuclei fuse. The fertilized egg remains attached to the gamete plant. Here it begins to divide and form an embryo. The growing embryo gets nutrients from the surrounding tissue and increases in size. The egg case around the embryo stretches and eventually breaks. A root now grows out into the soil where it supports the young spore plant and absorbs water. Other parts of the embryo form the first leaf and a stem. In this way, a new spore plant is formed that will mature into another spore-producing fern, continuing the reproductive cycle. The developing embryo remains attached to the gamete plant. The embryo develops into a small spore plant with root, leaf and stem. Further growth produces a large spore plant. While ferns do not form a major part of the Earth's vegetation, they have been on this planet for over 370 million years. Perhaps the secret to their success is to be found in the clever ways in which they form and release spores and gametes. Perhaps it's their ability to specialize and adapt to a wide variety of habitats. One thing is certain, these attractive plants will continue to thrive and spread.